myself in Handy Quacks by stating this. I was down 18 points going into the Sunday night game, and I had Mr. Michael Vick playing in that game. Vick was having a very good game. I saw my lead dwindle from 18 to 15 down to 10, 9, 8, 4, 3, 2. Middle of the third quarter, plenty of time left. Vick is gonna get at least 3 or 4 more points at the very least. 20-yard line, drops back to pass, throws a strike to Brent Selleck in the end zone. He drops it. Okay, that's fine. We got plenty of more time. I'm sure everything's going to be okay. Next play, concussed. Out for the fucking game. I lose. Okay, I'm going to be okay. But on to Handy Quacks. The son of a bitch has won 10 fucking games in a row. That's including a playoff game and the Dynasty Bowl. That it ties a Dynasty record with Coach Phil Tamulus' Negro Damas from Dynasty 5. With one more victory this upcoming week, Coach Palucha of the Handy Quacks will break a Dynasty record and having them won 11 straight games in a row, which would be frickin' amazing. Now on to the next game, Yellow Peril versus Iron Dogs. Another high-scoring game, both over 100 points, but Yellow Peril just went nuts. He exploded, 156 points, most points scored this week. Interesting fact that none of his starting players even cracked the top 15 for most fantasy or highest-scoring fantasy players this week. But his entire starting lineup ranged from 9 to 23 points, just a good all-around effort by him. So congratulations to Coach Kim for picking up his first victory in the Dynasty. The next game was the Amber Alerts versus the Heritage Park Hunters. You think, you score 122 points, you think you're going to win, but not when you play the goddamn Amber Alerts. Just another crazy game by TFB, led the world again in fantasy points this week with scoring 34 points. V-Jax went off. Johnny C traded up to get his ass. A lot of people were a little surprised at that, but it paid off this week. V-Jax put up 29 points, and there you go. Alerts goes to 2-0. Now, one negative for Coach Johnny C is that he is the first team now to officially lose his keeper player for the season. Jamal Charles snipped his knee, out for the year. Be interesting to see what Coach Johnny C does. He does have a very strong team, but we'll see how that plays itself out. The next game was the Rockdalian Senators versus Negro Damas. Now, both teams have, going into this game, played each other 16 times in Dynasty history. Both teams have a long storied history between each other. Now, Coach DeYoung started an injured Steven Jackson on Monday night, while Phil made a great coaching move by picking up and then starting Eric Decker, who went off 21 points. Those two moves in and of itself pretty much make Coach Tamulus deserve the victory, which he did receive, 117 to 82, to even out his record at 1-1. And then lastly, Soul Glow versus Brutal Deluxe. Really all-day Adrian Peterson. 120 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns for Soul Glow, 26 fantasy points. Him and really the Lions defense, along with Tony Gonzalez, led the way to Soul Glow's first win of the season, while Brutal Deluxe goes down to 1-1. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Pick'em update. Coming out of Week 1, Coach DeYoung's Rockdalian Senators was in the lead, and they were the only coach or the only team to not submit Pick'em votes going into Week 2. Very disappointing job by Coach Will. He actually did release a statement, which I will read here. It's literally a statement from Coach DeYoung, which states, quote, "Due to running with my head cut off, I failed to get my pick'em selections done before the deadline. Unfortunately, my running has hampered by my severed head being shoved up my ass. This condition has impacted all week 2 performances. Surgery was successful late Monday, with my head being removed, sterilized, and reattached to my neck. I expect Week 3 picks should restore me to be back on top." So at least Coach Will is looking at things at glass half full. But due to Coach Will's incompetence of not being able to make the pick'em selections, he's obviously dropped in the standings. And Hong Kong, Coach Whiffen, and Phil have overtaken the lead. They both are at a total of 8, while Brutal Deluxe, Bubba Gump, Handies, Iron Dogs and Yellow Peril are all right behind them with 7, and then the rest are trailing right behind them. So still close in the pick'ems. Now let's go ahead and move on to our next segment. Let's take a look at the Dynasty Power Rankings.
The Power Rankings. Hey, hey, hey. Who's number one? Hey, hey. Who's second ass? The Dynasty Power Rankings.
Now, Week 2's Power Rankings article was done by first-time Power Ranking Association member Brandon McDowell, and I thought he did a good job for his first time. Only kind of issue there was a little bit of accuracy problems when he stated within the article that Handy Quacks and Amber Alerts were playing each other in Week 3, and went on to state how it would be a good matchup and whatnot, but they're actually not playing each other. But besides that, it was a good article. And as we take a look at the rankings, the Amber Alerts are our new number 1 team. Looks like they received 3 of 5 number 1 votes, 58 points at the number 1 slot. Number 2, Hong Kong Cavaliers. They boost up from number 4 up to number 2 at the big win this week. Number 3 is Handy Quacks. I personally voted Handy Quacks number 1. I will go out on a limb and I will make that official. I feel that at this point, Handy Quacks has won 10 in a row. I'm basically going to be voting him number 1 until he loses again, if he ever does. And then number 4 was Bubblegum Shrimp. Number 5, Yellow Peril. He made quite the boost going up from number 9 to number 5. Negrodamus at number 6. Hunters at 7. Soul Glow still creeping up his way upwards at number 8. Brutal dropped a little bit down to number 9. Myself, Riverdale Scoopers, went from tied for 5th down to 10th. And 11th is still the Iron Dogs, and at the basement is still the Rockdalian Senators. And now on to our next segment, the number 1 voted thus far jingle of the Dynasty Podcast. Let's go ahead and take a look into next week's matchups.
Now, let's take a look into the future with next week's matchups.
Now we have another slot of divisional matchups here coming into Week 3, as we're still in the first quarter of the season. Unfortunately, Coach Brandon's power rankings didn't really specify, at least to me, who the game of the week was this week. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say that I believe that it's Yellow Peril versus the Amber Alerts. That should be a great game, high-scoring affair. Peril's 1-1, Alerts are 2-0. Top 5 in the power rankings, with Alerts being 1, Peril being 5. So I think we should all be kind of taking a look at that one. That should be a great match. Other than that, we got the Riverdale Scoopers going up against Iron Dogs. That's always a good matchup, especially after, post-Hennygate. We have the Handy Quacks against the Hunters. That certainly is potential for the game of the week right there. Just the fact that Handy Quacks could break a dynasty record if they get that 11th victory in a row. Plus, there's always a little remembrance of the Handy Quacks Hunters matchup when you think back to a couple years ago when Handy Quacks guaranteed a victory and Hunters kicked his ass. But we'll take a look and see what happens in that matchup. Kind of switching over to the South Riverdale division, Negrodamus up against Soul Glow. Negroes holds a 5-1 record against Soul Glow all time, so Soul Glow would like to try to turn that around. And then Bubblegum Shrimps going up against Rockdalian Senators. It's not going to get any easier for the Senators, so he better turn this shit around quick, or he's in for one hell of a long season. And then lastly, Brutal Deluxe up against the Hong Kong Cavaliers. 1-1 Brutal Deluxe, Hong Kong 2-0. We'll see what happens in that one. Should be another high-scoring game, I think. Alright, and that wraps up taking a look at next week's matchups. Now, on the Jumbo Donuts hotline, we have our rookie coach, a man who drafted over the phone from California, a man who picked up his first ever Dynasty victory this past week, Coach of Yellow Peril, Coach